Hey everybody, my name is Gian. I'm the owner of R1 Construction, a general contracting firm here in Austin, Texas. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about post-tension cabling. I wanted to talk a little bit about what it is, where you might find them, and what to do if you encounter them, both as a contractor, if you're doing a job like this, or if you're a homeowner and you are about to hire someone that is going to be doing any kind of work in your concrete foundation. So first off, post-tension cabling, what is it? Well, it's a braided metal cable that runs in between the concrete, runs through the center of the concrete in slab on grade applications. It's also used in commercial, high rises and things like that, but today we're going to just focus on the residential portion. It is a strong braided cable, steel braided cable, usually about a half an inch in diameter, and it's usually coated with something. It usually has a protective sleeve on it, some sort of polyethylene or one of those poly sleeves over it to protect the braided cable from corrosion from the concrete that it's embedded in. The cables themselves are usually color coded, so they're usually, I've seen red, I've seen blue coatings, I've seen purple, yellow, but they are usually coated in something to kind of help alert you to the fact of their presence. They're also, the spacing of these cables is determined by the structural engineer for whoever's building the house. And typically on a residential application, it's usually 2 foot to 4 foot on center. So you can usually expect to see something like that kind of in that realm. Now, this particular project that we're on right here, this is one of our typical bathtub to walk-in shower conversions. And so when we do those types of jobs, we typically will have to move the existing drain to line up with the new layout of the tile for the walk-in shower. And that was the case here on this job. So in that process, there were some things that came up before we started moving that drain. And these are some of the things that you folks should kind of look for as well. So when I'm out estimating these types of jobs for a move like this, the first thing I always ask is, when was the house built? I came into contact with post-tension cables. The first project I was on was in 2002 when I first encountered post-tension cabling. So for me, any home that's been built after 2000 has a high probability of there being post-tension cabling in the foundation. And so some of the things that I look for when I am walking these houses to do my estimate is for post-tension slab applications, there's normally, the builder will put a stamp in the concrete in the garage. So right where the garage door meets the ground, a lot of times you'll find, like where the eyeball sensors are, you'll see stamps in the concrete that will say post-tension slab, do not cut or core. This particular house, there wasn't any stamps. And so, I saw that, I noticed that, but I didn't stop there. So the next thing that you should look for is actually outside, and we'll go outside here in a second, and I'll kind of show you some of the signs, some of the things to look for out there to help you possibly identify whether or not the house you're working on has post-tension cabling in it or not. Okay, so now we're outside of the same house, and we're over here, we're looking at the exterior of the home. And one of the things that I'm looking for, again, what I mentioned earlier is that, post-tension cables on residential, they're usually spaced 2 to 4 feet. And so what you will see sometimes is on the foundation down here, there'll actually be small circle cracks in the foundation every 2 foot or 4 foot on center. And those cracks are caused by the cables themselves. If you can imagine that braided cable going from this side of the house all the way to the other side of the house, on one end you have a cup which is about 2 or 3 inches round, and on the other end you have a plate and that plate has rebar tied to it. And so in the process of post-tension cabling, after the cement, when they pour the foundation, after the cement's been poured, usually about a week or so later, they'll come back and they'll put stress on that cable. And on the cup side, there's a machine that goes under that goes onto that, and it pulls the cable together. It actually compresses them together, and the amount of pressure is in the neighborhood of, I want to say 50 or 60,000 pounds per square inch. Usually when that's taking place, there'll be signage everywhere telling people, do not come in this area because we are stressing post-tension cabling. So those cables are under tremendous amount of pressure, and it helps with the concrete to help stabilize it. It helps, just like rebar does. It gives it more tensile strength, so it helps with deflection, so that way the concrete won't lift. It helps with cracks. It's also, in all honesty, it's cheaper. That's why a lot of builders will use it, and it has a lot to do too with the soil. So like here in Austin, we have a lot of clay in a lot of areas, so there's a lot of expansion contraction going on in the soils here, and so you will see post-tension cabling in a lot of areas. At least I've encountered a lot of it here in a lot of areas around Austin, for that fact as well. But at the end of everything, usually it's cost. It's cheaper to put that stuff in. Labor wise, it's easier to put that stuff in than having to wrap all rebar. So when I came out here to this job, I was looking at the foundation, and what I'm actually touching right here, this actually isn't the foundation. This is actually mortar that's applied after the foundation's been poured. And so the foundation will be poured, and there's usually, you can see form board marks in it, and you'll see like all kinds of you'll see those cups, you'll see all kinds of just irregularities in the foundation. And so what the concrete guys do is they'll actually take mortar and they'll put a skim coat of mortar over this, and then they wipe it off with a sponge technique that gives you this type of texture that you see on just about every single house you look at. So they cover the cups, and sometimes even after doing that, if the application was a thin coat, or if the house has done a lot of settling, you still will see little circle hairline cracks. And so on this particular house, I didn't see any of that. So I didn't have any stamp in the garage. I didn't see any of the circle hairline cracks on the foundation, but because of the age of the house, I decided before I just start cutting and coring into this foundation, I'm going to take it a little bit easier. And so what we did in there is we used a shallow blade. We did a 1.5 inch deep relief cut, and then instead of using a pointed jackhammer, we used a flat bar jackhammer, and very slowly started to break away some of the concrete in the area where we're going to be moving our drain. And in that process, we did encounter a post-tension cable. So I'll show you what the post-tension cable looks like right now, so you guys can get your eyes on that and see what it is. Okay, so now we're back in our bathroom area here, and I want to show you kind of the situation that we were working with here. So, this is our original drain here, where the bathtub used to sit, and you can see, drains and bathtubs are usually pretty close to the wall. So with our new application, we needed to center this drain, and we wanted to pull it away from the wall a little bit, which would have put it right about here in this area. And this is that relief cut that I was telling you about. So we did a shallow relief cut, and then we started lightly jackhammering through this, and we came across this. And this is the red polyethylene, I can't remember what it is, polyethylene, polypropylene, whatever that is, sleeve that goes around the post-tension cable. So as soon as we encountered that, we stopped. And the drain should be coming in today. So we're going to dry fit this and see if we can make it work without having to chip anything else away. But the jackhammer is now out of the picture. We will now use a smaller little, breaker, little Makita breaker device to lightly chip away areas in here if we do need to widen this a little bit more. And I may need to just adjust the drain, maybe not instead of, we don't need it back here. It would be nice to have it way back here, but it doesn't have to be, we can move it closer to the wall. But the main point here is that this cable, this is that post-tension cable I was talking about that is under all of that tremendous pressure. So as a homeowner, if you have something like this going on and you see your contractor come in with one of those cutting wheels that's got a 14-inch blade on it, if they're not familiar with post-tension cables and they don't know what to look for, when they slice through this thing, all that pressure, it's like cutting a rubber band. So all that pressure gets released all at once. It'll damage the concrete. It weakens the structure, and it actually can hurt people. So it's one of those things that I decided I should probably make a video about this because it is important. There are a bunch of people that I've come into contact with that aren't familiar with post-tension cables, and because this house here had no signs of any of the warnings telling me that there was post-tension cables here, I'm just fortunate that I had the knowledge to do this and take the steps that I did. Had I came in here with a large 14-inch cutter, I would have started my first cut right here. As soon as I cut that cable, we would have known it. It would have busted all this concrete out. It would have blown the end out over here on the foundation. It could have done all sorts of damage. So again, when you're doing this type of work, if you're a contractor, take it slow, look for the signs. If you're a homeowner, ask your contractor if they have any experience with post-tension cables. Do they know what it is? If you're a homeowner, go look for yourself. If you have a newer home, take a look in your garage and see, is there a stamp anywhere on your garage floor that says post-tension slab, do not cut or core? If you do have those stamps and you do know that you are on a post-tension slab, as a contractor, you have a couple different options. You can either try and go this route to try and determine whether or not there's something there, or you can hire a third-party x-ray company, and they'll come out and they'll actually x-ray the area that you're working in, and they'll be able to tell you exactly where the cables are, where your rebar is, and the areas that you can work in and the areas that you can't touch. So that is the preferred method. That's the safest bet right there, is to have your slab x-rayed if you know for sure that it's post-tension. For this here, we did rupture that polyethylene sleeve, so before we do anything more on this, we're going to seal that because we don't want to get any concrete or moisture in there that may deteriorate that cable over time. So we're going to repair that before we do anything more. So that is it for post-tension cables and shower conversions. If you are in the Austin area and would like a quote, please reach us at r1construction.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.